I'm pleased to be joined by the Dutch Prime Minister. Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us
here
in
Osaka.
Thank you for
inviting me.
Let's talk first about trade. You know, you just came back from China on your way here to Osaka, and you met with your counterpart, Premier Li Keqiang. I'm guessing trade was part of the discussions. What's
Absolutely.
the latest?
Well, we discussed at length how to uphold the multilateral system. And of course there is a problem now between China and the United States. And from our perspective, we do understand why the US has some issues with China on intellectual properties, opening up the financial sector. But at the same time, we very much call upon both parties to scale down the conflict. Because it is in nobody's interest if this trade problem evolves into a full trade war. How
does this Xi-Trump meeting on Saturday set the tone for Europe? How close are you watching what goes on Saturday?
Well, we are slightly interested in what is happening there because we do believe that it is important for Europe as a trading bloc. We are the biggest market in the world. We are bigger than the US, bigger than China, and the biggest trading partner for everyone in the world. So it is crucial for us that this trade problem is contained and that the two presidents are able to, in a friendly way, able to solve this crisis now or at least step by step.
Do you think that we'll get some kind of truce?
I hope. I'm not there and of course not involved in the preparations. Yeah. But again, I do understand some of the issues the US is raising with China. I think they are fair. They have to be raised. At the same time, China is trying to make some changes to its system. So the problem will be, I think, the speed by which this is done and the level of comfort the Chinese can give to the Americans that this is happening.
I want to talk about the gathering in Brussels on Sunday as well. As far as we know, the Dutch government hasn't publicly stated who they're going to be supporting for Juncker's successor. The clock is ticking, though. Who would you prefer?
Well, I want us to come to a consensus as much as possible as a European Union, because it is crucial for the next 5 years. We have European Commission President and a Council President who have broad support. Because the agenda is huge. It's on the one side about making sure that within Europe, the European Union is big on the big things and small on the small things, is concentrating on real issues like migration, climate change and the internal market, whilst at the same time presenting ourselves on the world stage with a let's say, a bigger impact. We have to project ourselves on the world stage with more confidence. So there is an internal and external agenda, and that requires a broad-based support for who will be the successor of Juncker or Tusk.
Is it reasonable to think that whoever is going to be the next European Commission president comes from the EPP if the party can find a candidate that can win support within the European Council?
Well, that is a logical outcome. It is not the only outcome. The European Parliament has stated that they want one of the so-called Spitzenkandidaten. So these are the lead candidates in the last elections, be it Timmermans or Weber or Vestager, to become Commission President. At the moment, it seems to be difficult to get to a majority for any of these three. So it will all depend now on how that backroom dealing will evolve over the next couple of days here in Osaka, but particularly, of course, on Sunday in Brussels.
Some have said that Manfred Weber doesn't have the majority within Parliament. Do you get any indication from the EPP that they might be considering a different candidate?
I'm getting a lot of indications, but I should keep them to myself because most of them are given in confidence. And so far, the official position of the EPP, as I understand it, is that they hang on to the Weber candidacy, that they want to stick to the Spitzen system. And Parliament has stated very clearly on the Tuesday after the elections, at the end of May, that the new Commission President has to come from one of these three persons, being Timmermans, Vestager or Weber.
So you still think those three frontrunners should be part of these discussions? Right?
Yeah, well, that was a fascinating outcome of the European Council a week ago, that it seemed like that 500 million Europeans could become Commission President, but not D3. That was a bit strange, because somehow people said the Spitzen system is now dead. I was never happy about this whole Spitzen idea, because it is a bit of a strange way to have a sort of democratic legitimacy to the new Commission President in a very indirect way. I don't think it works like that. But of course, these big parties, the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats, have been very clear that this is how they want to proceed. So that it seems for me logical that at first we look at one of these three candidates, Vestager, Timmermans or Weber, to fill that post.
Your name has been thrown around a couple times to replace Juncker.
I was one of the other 500 million Europeans being mentioned.
But I know you said before that you're not willing to give up your job as Prime Minister to take a job in Brussels.
No.
But my question is, what if you were asked to do it? If you were told that this is the best way forward for the European Union?
Well, the painful aspect of all of this is that nobody asked me. So you're raising
would you
a very
consider
painful.
it if you were asked?
No, I would not. No, I would not. I will stay as Prime Minister. I'm now almost 9 years in this job. I'm also a member of the European Council, so my effectiveness, the impact I can have on the European debate, working as Prime Minister from the Netherlands and being part of the European Council is interesting for me and for the Netherlands at the moment. So I will not consider a European position.
What's your expectation for Sunday? Do you think it's going to be a one full package with all the top roles, or do you think it's this one and then a couple more roles pushed forward?
I think at least we should decide on the Commission President, but I cannot see at this moment how you can come to a decision on a Commission Presidency without having clarity on who would become President of the Council, the High Representative, and by default thinking about who might be chosen by Parliament as a President of the European Parliament. So it has to be, I think, some sort of package, at least light touch, because otherwise I cannot see how we can solve that conundrum.
Do you have any other preferences for the other jobs, like ECB President, for example, or Glass-Knot? Would that be someone of
Well, I think for the ECB presidency at this moment it is not part of the debate, and I think that is good because this whole debate is not so much about countries, it is primarily about party political affiliation. I believe, and most of my colleagues believe, that the next ECB president should be a real banker with a central banking background. And given the present how it is now formed, the governing council and the senior leadership of the ECB, it makes sense that that central banker is not particularly coming from the south of Europe. But that is a debate we should have later on. So I think it is good to de-link that and see that it's a separate issue we have to deal with after we have dealt with the top jobs in council and commission.
I want to talk about Italy here real quick. Have you seen anything in Italy's budget projections, maybe in the next year or this year, that justifies not starting the excessive deficit procedures?
No. I think it's up to the Commission, so we will have to hear from the Commission what their view is. So they might have more information about what Italy is doing currently, but I've seen nothing which would suggest that they can escape this excessive deficit procedure. And I think it's crucial that in the European Union a deal really is a deal and that you all stick to the rules. In the Netherlands we had to put in place over 50 billion in savings on an 800 billion economy. And now we are growing. We have the lowest unemployment in over a generation, the lowest youth unemployment in over a generation, more jobs than ever. So it pays off to put reforms and savings in place when you go through a crisis. And Italy is not doing that.
How
Simply
big of
not
an
doing
effort
it.
is still needed then?
A very big effort because the economic growth is very low. They still have a deficit which is too high based on the Stability and Growth Pact, which underpins the euro. So in terms of trust and making sure that we all do what we have to do at our national levels to keep the euro strong, Italy really has to do more and the Commission has to intervene.
Oh, why does it matter, though? Tell us a little bit more about what Italy's budget finances and how it impacts Europe overall.
Well, first of all, because in the Netherlands, when I explained to my population that we had to do this, of course we first of all have done this because we believe it is necessary and we wanted to get growth back. And we did, and get our unemployment down, and we were successful in doing so. So that's the first reason you do it. But also being a member of this Euro club, you have to do what you have promised others to do in certain situations. If you don't, you get a trust issue within the Eurozone, which is not good. And then it is up to the Commission to make sure that the rules apply to everybody.
I have one last question on Brexit. When it comes to Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt, who would you prefer as the best candidate here to avoid a no-deal Brexit?
Well, I should not interfere in that election, and I have to work with whomever will be chosen, be it Hunt or Johnson. But more generally speaking, as Theresa May said, Brexit is Brexit. I'm afraid I have to tell them that hard Brexit is hard Brexit. And sometimes in this whole campaign you will hear voices saying, well, maybe a hard Brexit is not really a hard Brexit, and we can immediately have a new trade deal following upon that. It's not true. And a hard Brexit will have a huge impact on the British economy. Already Brexit is having that impact. Many companies are now moving to the Netherlands. But again, they have to face up to reality.
Quick one. Are we going to get any word of climate change in the communique this weekend?
Yes, I'm fairly optimistic, but I have been optimistic a couple of hours ago and this morning, and then the optimism went down a bit. But at this moment, as we are speaking here in Osaka, I'm fairly optimistic that we have some ambitious language on climate change.
Prime Minister, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. That was the Dutch
Thank you so much.
Prime Minister Mark Rutte joining us here in Osaka.